Hey, everybody, welcome to the From Ordinary to Extraordinary podcast. I am Monica Body, the COO of Monica Biz Network, and this podcast or today's episode is a little different than all the others that will follow because today we are featuring the founder of Monica Biz Network and the host of this podcast, Victoria Caldwell. So, what we wanted to do today is to really introduce you to this whole series, what it's about, where it's even coming from. And so, with that said, Victoria, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, I just introduced you very briefly as the founder of Monica Biz Network and the host of this podcast, but many of the people coming here may not know you at all. Is there anything that you want to preface before we get into the actual further explanation of the podcast itself?
Well, not really.
Not really? Okay, okay. Look, hey, for all of you listening, I want you to know that just even getting to this point and doing this particular episode where we are featuring Victoria, it was like pulling teeth. I'll be honest with you. Victoria loves to help other people shine, and today we are turning the tables. And so hopefully we kind of can get some other things out during today's episode, but let's keep it easy. How about you share with the listeners what was the inspiration behind this project?
Well, the From Ordinary to Extraordinary project, like I think most entrepreneurs, it kind of was a offshoot of the Monica Biz Network. And as that project itself was a networking organization, and it still is. But after putting on several events, I noticed that we had a lot of talent and a lot of potential. But listening to the pitches and listening to some of the way entrepreneurs really presented themselves, I thought, wow, this is a really good idea. This is a really good concept. The only thing that's missing is something in the delivery. It's not connecting all the time. Now, some of them did very, very well. And on the flip side of that, I saw that in the part that where some of them were pitching for investors.
Yeah, yeah, I remember.
Yes. And so that was a very big part of what we were doing. And some of them had great projects. It's just that it might not have connected as well as it could have had they had some prior training up front. So I decided, okay, let me step back and think, how can I support them in getting to that level? So then I brought it back, and in the process of doing all of this, I learned some very valuable information, actually because of you, which are always extremely helpful. But you introduced me to these profiles, these wealth dynamic profiles, and that allowed me to understand that everyone has a natural path to creating wealth, but it also opened up the doors to how everyone is just naturally genius. And I already knew this inherently, but I wasn't sure how to bring that out of everyone else. So this provided that roadmap that I could introduce to other people. Also, to bring in the element of having successful entrepreneurs come and share their expertise, share their struggles and their mistakes, and bringing both of those together to support entrepreneurs and seasoned entrepreneurs even reach higher levels, because we all learn from each other.
Right,
And we
right.
never stop learning. So just because you reach a certain level doesn't necessarily mean that you know everything and you can't learn from somebody, even if they're at a quote unquote lower level than you. That's not the case. So I really wanted to support as much as possible, helping mainly entrepreneurs get started.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and even before the wealth dynamics, there was another system that we encountered, and again, I came to it first and shared it with you,
Mm-hmm.
that we found to be so beneficial for us both, not only because of how we responded to our individual results, but also because we were able to like take the results that we received and to look even more deeply into what it actually means for us and what we can do differently. And you can tell the audience in a moment what this assessment is that I'm speaking of, but I'll just say that one of the things I noticed, and you tell me if you notice this too, is that when we shared this in the entrepreneurial group that we are in, that people treated it just like every other, assessment out there, the Myers-Briggs or whatever, what have you, where you get the description of your archetype and then you just kind of move on to the next thing. And they didn't really leverage that. So
Yeah.
do you remember that?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So will you speak to that assessment as well?
That assessment, oh my gosh, that was the first one actually.
Yes, it was
That
the
was the
first one.
first one that we
Hmm.
did a while back. And again, like you said, you introduced that to me, and I was pretty much blown away because I saw it. What made that one different? And this one is called the Fascination Advantage, and it's on our website o2epodcast.com in the resources section. Both of these are there. The Fascination Advantage is an assessment done by Sally Hogshead, and what her assessment does is it tells you what fascinates other people about you.
Hmm.
So most of our assessments that we take are personality tests, and it tells you how you view the world. But this one basically tells you how the world views you. And it, of course, is bringing out your most positive advantages. They can all become negative if you get out of your flow a little bit. But
Yeah.
they're fascination advantages. It's what people naturally are drawn to about you. So you can take that and leverage it in building your business as long as you know that, because like you said, it's like a mirror,
Yeah.
and you don't know the color of your eyes unless someone tells you. So looking at this assessment and coupling it with the other assessment, you have a powerful platform to start building a business. And this is the platform that we recommend that everyone starts from, as opposed to starting from anywhere else. But that I found the Fascination Advantage exactly true in my selling when I come to my consultative selling in our online marketing agency. And I realized what connected people to me, what made people buy from me, or what made people respond to me. And it was exactly what she put in the Fascination Advantage, even
Yeah.
down to the words that sometimes they would use to describe me.
Yeah.
So it came out very powerful in that now I just do it on purpose and make sure it's in every part of my marketing.
Right, right. So it goes from being unconscious and something that you may, you just happen to be doing just because you're just being yourself, to
Yes.
something that becomes an actual criteria
Yes.
for your very decision making, your criteria for your copy, your criteria for, and when I say copy, for those who are listening, I mean the words that you put on a page in order to connect with your prospects and to guide them into whatever action it is that you want them to take, right?
Yeah.
So you can do it much more consciously. So it's like it was interesting the way that we even came to these assessments, because the first we met the one that talked about your innate value that just overflows out of you. It's what people come to you for. So we learned that through the Fascination Advantage, and then with Wealth Dynamics it took it to the next level, because that talks about how now you take your value, and you leverage it, and that's what creates the wealth. And
Exactly.
so I'm excited by it, and I hope, I know this sounds, for those who are just coming, who are just getting into business, it may sound like a whole lot of talk right now, but stick around, and you're going to come to understand what we're talking about. And we really look forward to supporting you and getting on the right place to begin with. Now,
Yeah.
having said all of that, I want to dig in with you and
Mm.
invite you to share with the listeners, what would you say was the most difficult part of growing your business? We're talking about value, we're talking about leveraging. Well, what are the problems that you had with those things in your own experience?
Um, in growing my business, in regards to this, most of the problems I had was when I was doing things that were considered out of flow, doing the wrong things. And that's mainly because I got trainings and I was following excellent marketers, but they were different and they had a different path, and things worked well for them, but they felt unnatural to me. Or if things didn't work well for me, I felt, okay, now I'm a failure because I can't make this happen the way they did.
Yeah.
And eventually you get into a flow, but it's a long learning curve if you don't snap into it quickly enough. So eventually I started learning what works for me and what doesn't, and being able to take the trainings I've learned and mold it to myself. But some try to follow it to an exact T, and I would always resist certain parts, especially when it came to building a business or doing business in a certain way, because some people, even when it came to my coaches, it
Yeah.
would also be very, it, they weren't there with me. They weren't there. I'm not stupid. I'm intelligent person, but some of the coaches are just very, okay, it's all about accountability. Well, so what are you going to do tomorrow? Why didn't you do it? And I'm thinking, okay, something about this doesn't feel right. And I needed someone who was able to meet me mentally to say, okay, what about this is not working and why is it not working? And that's what a lot of coaches don't have. They'll use this excuse like, or you're self sabotaging. And I'm like, well, I'm not self sabotaging, but it's hard to convince them because they think you're making excuses. So
Yes.
eventually they
Yes.
had to go. And and in
Yes.
my innate ability, I signaled you out and I said, you're the one to help me. You're the one to get this going. And we've been kicking butt ever since.
Yes, we have. And just to let everyone listening, and the way that even came about, it was we were blessed to be both pulled in on another project altogether. And by the time I came to that project as the acting project manager, Victoria and her team were already on the project. And so I was stepping in to a group and into a team that had already been in working on this particular project for quite some time. So I had to get spun up and everything and diagnose what was really going on, dig in, fix this, do that, do it, and do my thing as project manager.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we wrapped up that project, literally the very next week, that Monday, Victoria was on my phone. And she told me. Now, let me step back and say, guys, I am a coach. I work with entrepreneurs, coach, consultant, and so she was on my phone. No, you know what? I've been talking about this project a little bit here, a little bit there. Well, look, here's the thing. I need you. You are the one who I need to help me do this. And I was like, okay, alhamdulillah, praise be, right? But
Yeah.
and you were adamant. You laid it down. You're the one who needs to help me. I need your help. Name your price and let's get it going. And that's literally how it went. Victoria, and when you learn the profiles, her particular profile is expert at being able to discern what others are bringing to the table. Okay, and that quality that they need in order to deliver a certain product, they know how to pull the right people in with the right core competencies in order to achieve a specific goal for a specific cause, right? So this, and I didn't know this at the time, she wouldn't have described herself that way at the time. Now that we know wealth dynamics, we're very clear that that's what it is. But she exercised her innate gift in identifying me as being the one that she needed to truly launch Baraka Biz Network. And once we got going, we set the goal. 6 months, we were going to have it done. And literally 6 months later, in November of 2012, that's when Baraka Biz Network literally came to life.
Yeah.
And you said something there I want to just bring out a little bit. I mentioned that, for all those listening, yes, I am a coach. And the part that you said where there are coaches out there who say about, accountability, just focusing on the accountability, or they want to go into you're just self-sabotaging in this. And yes. And Victoria and I have spoken about this so many times, between ourselves, and I call it bullying. There is a lot of bullying that happens within the coaching profession. I think what happens with the benefit of Fascinating Advantage and Wealth Dynamics is that first and foremost, you are able to assess what is the core goodness or value that this person is bringing forth across all situations, across his or her life, and what is the path of least resistance for leveraging that value. As a coach, if you're listening to this, and once you know that about your client, then you will actually have a much better assessment of when they are in fact self-sabotaging.
Yes.
Or when they are in fact making excuses or something, because you will know what goes with their nature and what does not.
Yes.
What is like their quicksand situation, if you will, something that they're just is gonna zap their energy. It's something that will just innately resist because it is not the best use of their energy
Exactly.
versus what will, in theory, which should be boosting them up and that they should be actually do quite easily without any resistance whatsoever. It, as a coach, these tools help you to do that. Now, without even having those tools at that time, I'm very happy that just my innate setting, I was able to meet you where you are. But that gets into my
Exactly.
fascination advantage and my profile. And
Yeah.
so, we discovered that we literally fit together in the wealth dynamics. And there is
Exactly.
it. So it's been beautiful to see all of that confirmed through the things that we discovered later. So to bring it back a little bit, you were saying that you found that there were some things that you were following great marketers who, big time marketers who have great programs and this and that and the other, but you found that you resisted some of the things that they were recommending that you do, and you weren't buying into the story about the self-sabotage and the this and that and the other, because
Exactly.
guess what, you're already a businesswoman, and for
Exactly.
those of you out there, Victoria already, she has more than one business. She had business already coming into Buttercup Biz Network, so she did not come to the table for this particular project as just lost and not, no, she's already quite savvy, so she didn't buy into that. So with that said, and once you got the right person to support you, okay, and you moved forward, what were some of the learning cycles that well, we talk about learning cycles, so you're going to have to define that even. But then, having said that, can you tell us about what you have learned in those learning cycles?
Um, and basically, learning cycles, just to really explain what that is they're basically, as an entrepreneur, we have to do to learn. And traditionally in school, we're taught to learn and then do. And I think that's what gets people a little bit apprehensive about taking the leap when it comes to entrepreneurship, because they feel they don't know enough. And you don't have to know everything, but you have to learn. You have to do in order to learn. And the learning cycles are basically, you might call them failures or mistakes, but they're things, it's the process that you go through to learn what to do, what not to do, what is going to work for you, what's not working. And you don't know that until you actually get out there. So you might put out what you think is the best product or the best service, but if your market doesn't respond to it,
Hmm.
you have to go back to the drawing board. That's a learning cycle. Or you decide that, hey, this is not going to work, but you do it anyway and it works extremely well. That's a learning cycle, because now you're realizing, okay, I learned something about the market, I learned something about myself, even down to the point where you do something, and this happens a lot even for you.
Hmm.
You, especially with your profile, you have to initiate to see if it feels right. If it doesn't
Yes.
feel right, you'll pull back,
Yeah.
and you'll pull back and you'll go back at it again. My profile, I'm a little bit different. I might obsess over it a little bit more before I launch it, but usually by the time I have a good feeling about something, I have a really good feeling about it. So I operate a little bit differently, but
Hmm.
I also stay on that path until it just gets worked out. Whereas
Yeah.
somebody with your profile, you might change 10 times, and it's okay.
Absolutely. One of the things I love about the wealth dynamics is that we already worked well with each other, quite well.
Yeah.
But what we learned, we're able to appreciate our innate profiles even more, and we understand like how we move, how and when and why won't we move, and what
Yeah.
is, if there's any back and forth or this that, we know where the other person will tend to do that. So, one of the things that wealth dynamics did for me was, for example, you literally just explained how for me, I'll see like, okay, that sounds really cool. Or yeah, I feel a little bit of something, but I literally have to act towards it. I have to get a taste of the action. I have to take a step before I get confirmation on that gut check to know
Yeah.
if yes, in fact, it is for me. But you have to have that gut check before you even move. And
Yeah.
so once we once we
I've given her crazy with
once
that
we
one.
fully understood that about each other, it just made our discussions and relationship even more. I mean, it was already good, but when you truly understand the people that you're working with, and you honor them, you
Yeah.
honor how Allah made them, you honor how they'll typically understand and do and this and that and the other, you're able to much more effectively work with them and create value with them and
Right.
appreciate them and love them in a way that you weren't able to before. And also for myself, I'm able to come out of whatever um, chatter that I would create around something that is natural for you, because that's just how you're made. It's not about, again, like we were talking before, like the coaches, like those who will make story around, oh, it's self-sabotage, oh, it's limiting beliefs, oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's this and oh, it's that. And that's not to say those things don't happen, they do. But the thing is, that's not even the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're able to divorce ourselves from any interpretations that we might come up with in ourselves
Yeah.
to what the other is doing, and to actually just appreciate that person in their process and
Yeah.
honor them. And I feel that this has benefited us so much. So
Yeah. And for me, it explained why. I mean, it's shown up all throughout my life, and things that I do so easily, and the same as for everyone else, I do so easily. What, especially in the entrepreneurial world. And so somebody like they're a creator profile like you, and they have tons of ideas, and a lot of people tend to think these people are flaky, or
yep,
they start all of these things, they don't finish anything.
yep,
But when you get into it, you realize that that is their job. Their job is to initiate, to create. Their job is not to finish.
correct.
Their job is not to finish,
Yes,
and their ideas fire so quickly and so fast that they, before they lock down on one good, they're on to the next one, and they're always great ideas. They might always be feasible, but they're always great ideas. And what they need is a team to execute those ideas.
yes,
And I'm great at getting it done, but I will have to sift through it. I'll analyze it. I'll sift through it, see if I can get on board with it. If I can get on board with it, I can find the people and we can get it done, because
yes,
everything was like, "Oh, you're a natural leader." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, okay." And it also explained why I'm able to find the right people and keep the right people in my leadership style, because I naturally appreciate who they are, and I've been doing it for so long, but I didn't realize that. I thought everybody did it.
right,
And I would notice how some people would say, they would put other entrepreneurs down because they don't initiate as fast as they do. And I would think, well, they have a different way. They do
yes,
things differently. And I could always appreciate it. And usually it was the people that I know now who are polar opposites. Some move extremely fast, some are extremely slow because they got to dig all of this information and research. And both have everyone has that double-edged sword.
yeah,
So, too slow, you never actually get anything done. Too fast, you lose a lot. You lose a
yes,
lot of the details. So you need each other to kind of keep you grounded, but you also need everyone to be in their natural flow. So you need that team. And I just realized with all of this how I fit into that team and how I'm so important, because without my time, things don't get done as well as they could get done, because I'm all about finding the right people and getting the right people to get it done. I don't have a
right,
problem with delegating. I don't have a problem with letting go. But with talking to other entrepreneurs, I realized that for some, letting go and delegating is a huge, huge challenge.
yes.
And I just never had that problem.
Yeah. Yes, that's not your problem. Delegating is very easy, but there's something behind, well, I won't say behind, but there's an understanding that goes with that ease of delegation that others may not have coming in the door, starting in their entrepreneurial journey, or maybe just because of the profile that they have.
Yeah.
And that is that, first of all, you will not be able to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not about being lone ranger. And I know that there are a lot of people, particularly I will say women, because I've worked mostly with women, who come into entrepreneurship often as something that can be done on the side. That's something that's just to augment. And even if they do plan to go into it more full time, it's still something she's expecting to be just her thing, maybe because of lack of capital, maybe because
Mhm.
of lack of experience, whatever that shortcoming is, there's this maybe even unconscious thing where they expect to be the one doing their business. And what you've just said, the premise of it, the premise of BBN, the premise of Wealth Dynamics, even as well, is that you will be joining with others. You will be working with others in order to deliver a certain value into the marketplace. You will not and cannot do every last part of that value creation by yourself.
Yes.
And I think this is a key point that those coming in the door should have. What would you say on that?
Well, absolutely, because I think, and now that I know that it's not natural for everyone to think that way, a lot of times, even business owners, and I'm talking about they can be making millions, they come to the point where they have to delegate and hire somebody out of sheer necessity, or they're going to lose the business. It's going
Right.
to fail. And that's when they get to that point. And somebody like me, who's, when I'm starting, I'm thinking about delegating because I don't want to be enslaved by it.
Yeah.
And that part is natural for me, but it is something that you have to go into it thinking that this is going to be a team effort. You are going to have to build a team eventually, so you might as well start thinking about that from the very beginning. And I mean, that's just the way my mind works. My mind will go 10 years down the road, and what do I want to be doing and what do I not want to be doing? And even though I enjoy what I do, I don't want to have to do the stuff I don't want to do. This type
Right.
of stuff, I enjoy it. It's play. It's fun. I'll do it all day long. But then there are things that I don't want to touch. And the thing is, you have to realize there are some things you're going to have to do in the beginning. But you
Yes.
don't set yourself up to continuously do it. You do it because that's where you are in the process. It's a process.
Right.
That is not supposed to be your destination. So,
Right. Right. I think an excellent resource for that is the works by Michael Gerber, The Entrepreneurial Myth.
oh yeah,
Oh
love
yeah,
that.
yeah, and that's
Yeah,
exactly what he lays out in that book, and
yeah.
the examples that he gives really speak to that, and how those who featured went through that very process. So here's a great question. So once you got a hold of Fascination Advantage, and very quickly after that, we got to the Wealth Dynamics. How did learning about those two, getting your archetype and your profile, starting to look into it, how did it change how you do business?
Oh my gosh. Well, for one thing, it helped me. Of course, I'm a marketer, so it
Yeah,
helped me purposely highlight the advantage. So it's my own personal competitive advantage, basically.
yeah,
And I never worried about competitors anyway because I do what I do and I know what I'm good at. But this one helped me to really articulate what I bring to the table and why they need it.
yeah.
And two, it helped me really discern what type of clients I am best suited to serve.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what client, and we know this, all
Yes.
of the clients that we worked with and struggled with in the past, not because we don't do great work, not because they're bad people, because we were polar opposites in our thinking.
Yes.
And the way we execute, it just meant that we are not best suited to serve this type of client. And then there's some that we're most suited to serve.
Yes.
So that really, when people talking about attracting your ideal clients, this is it. You'll see where you're going to have some rough patches because all of the issues that I've ever had in business with clients were ones that were polar opposites. I've never in all of my clientele had any other issue until I realized this is it. We are completely different in the way we think, in the way we operate, and they're important to have on your team. But as far as me serving them as a business owner, it doesn't really work well for the business. So it helps you segment your customer base, and there's somebody else that's best suited for them. So it doesn't. There's enough to go around, but I can focus my goodness and
Yeah.
our teams on what we can best deliver. And that is a protection for me, it's a protection for our team, it's a protection for the client, because there's no point in wasting their time if they're not, we can't move we can't move forward. Most of it is because when I need to move forward, especially in this industry, we have to move quickly and we have to do things and we have to be innovative and we have to be different. Where for those who don't think that way, it's very hard for them to get on board with that idea. It scares them, it paralyzes them, and it keeps them from moving. And when it keeps you from moving in our business, if I give a client some advice and said we need to move on this quickly and we need to do this, and I know this because I've done it for 13 years, and they don't know, and they feel like they have to gather all of the information, and I'm looking like, look, you're trying to gather information that it took me 13 years to build and experience. It's not going to happen. Not only that, you still have to run your business. So it doesn't happen. So there's a disconnect.
Yes.
But maybe someone else can serve them better. We know that now after suffering through those.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I only caught, there's one client in particular I know that we're both thinking about, and I only caught the very tail end.
No, and you caught the easy one. And
yes. Yeah, exactly. I did.
The easy one. And they're great. They're great people. They're great people. They're great business people. It's just that it's appreciating who they are as individuals, but also appreciating that when it comes to working together and being business, me serving them in their marketing and doing the work for them, it doesn't work as a good partnership in particular because of that. Now, friends and everything else, totally fine, but that's where, and also one of my clients, another one that fits that profile, basically he would tell me about how he builds business, how he creates wealth. And he really thought that everyone should do it this way, to the point where he would say it as if it was a law. Mm-hmm. And his way was basically high volume, low margin. High volume, low margin. Well, that doesn't really sit with me, because on the opposite end, I might do high margin, low volume.
Yes.
Because I like to dig in, I like to get deep, and I like to do everything very customized and very thorough. Well, you can't do that for everyone on high volume. So you have to, your value is maximized on one end. And that's where we would disconnect, because I would tell them, well, if you want customized service and you want this and you want all of this and you want the high quality and the high level, because that's how he operated too, my business is not set up in a way that I can do that, because he had a business where he could put stuff up and turn it around very quickly. It didn't, if he had to do it based on a custom basis, it would be a challenge for him. But he wasn't based on custom. He had the same, let's say it was a party rentals. It's not, but it's close to it. Let's say he was doing party rentals. Well, then you got the rentals already there. You just have to re-rent them and re-rent them and re-rent them. Yeah. And there's not a whole lot of customization in what he was doing. So he was able to operate that way. But at the same time, he thought that everybody should operate. And that's because it's so innate for him.
Exactly.
Not realizing that different people. And that's the danger in this. When you don't realize it, you start to criticize other people for how they operate. Yes. Not appreciate it. So
not appreciate it, and start making stories around it as to why you're not doing this or not achieving. And as you were, because I'm very familiar with the Wealth Dynamics profile, what Victoria was explaining was the profile called Lord. And there's a particular way that they go about generating wealth. And so they are the polar opposite of Victoria. And so after we came to know about wealth dynamics, and she began to look at her clientele as to what was going on, why some of them, it just went great. And other ones, I mean, it was just a doozy and like pulling teeth all the time. She understood why, because where they are in the value creation cycle was completely opposite. He had a set of expectations that did not fit in her industry, which is the service that he was looking for, and he didn't understand that this wasn't the case at all. And so now we know that Victoria knows do not take on people from this side of the value creation cycle or the wealth creation cycle, not as clients. You don't want
Yeah.
to be working for them, but you definitely need people with that type of mind in your business
Yeah.
when it comes to the, systemization, evaluation, standardization, and all that. They're great for that. So
Yeah.
employ them, but don't work for them. So that's
Yeah.
that's what and what'll happen for those of you listening is that when you get to the point in your business where you are actually either you're taking on contractors or you're taking on staff, even volunteers, when you know the wealth dynamic, when you know these profiles and how people just innately participate in the generation of value, bringing forth a certain value into the market, when you know what everyone is bringing to the table, then you will know, okay, for this particular position, I need a tempo genius. And there's a reason why you would say that.
Yeah.
And if you say tempo genius, you're either talking about deal maker, trader, or an accumulator. And
Yeah.
which one you would take kind of depends on what it is that you're trying to do. But you know that you need that side of the house, if you will, because they naturally do X, Y, Z. When Victoria was looking to get Baraka Biz Network off of the ground, okay, very naturally, and again, this happened organically without her knowing or me knowing, we hadn't been introduced at that time, she turned to me because working with me, she very quickly understood that I had the mind that she needed to help her to take a look at this thing, this concept, this idea, and to literally innovate, with it and look at it and question it and look at all kinds of perspectives and this and dig in and really get into innovation of it all, of what she was even trying to create. And that's what people like me ask, what?
Yeah, because I didn't need okay, so what is this? I needed someone who could get in there and create a dialogue. I didn't need anyone telling me, okay, so what are you going to do or when are you going to do it? I didn't need that. I mean, I'm not a child. Now, it works for some people. It's just not what I needed. I needed something a whole lot higher level. I'm not a beginner. I don't know everything, and I know I have things to learn. Everyone, I think, needs a coach. Coaches have coaches, We need coaches.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
need people that's coming in from the outside to be able to say, okay, well, what about this? And to really get in there and dig in on an intellectual level and to help execute. And that's what I knew you had. And, we got that project done once you got on board. And I was working with another project manager, and she was project manager in title, but she didn't do anything. And I got so frustrated with them that I was like, she's completely, worthless. She's doing nothing. I don't know how much you guys are paying her, but if I got work to do, I got other projects to get done, and she is just not working out. And he realized that, oh my gosh, we've been on this for this long and this is not going anywhere. And I'm like, exactly. We need to get somebody else on board. And that's when they got you on board, and we rocked it out after that. But my goodness, I'd suffered.
Yes, and this is what can
process.
happen when you have the wrong person in the position. And when I say the wrong person, we're not talking about character.
Yeah,
We're literally talking about the execution of a certain value within the value creation chain. And I think that as those who are listening, and I know some of you are just new to business altogether, some of you are not necessarily new to business, you are new to stepping out on your own, okay? Or you could be not new to business, or you've stepped out on your own before, but you are striving to do a new project. You're launching out with something new. You're at this place of newness, and you have to come back you're at the drawing board, or you have to come back to the drawing board. And you're here looking for what might support you in doing so. What we really want to offer you or really convey is this message that, truly there is a way to be able to learn who to work with and why and when and how, or most optimally. And also, who are you in your value, your path of least resistance in this whole conversation of how you get value out there to the world, into the world, into the market. When you know who you are and you know how to evaluate others, then you can get the right people into place so that you can most effectively, most efficiently, with the utmost ease, produce
Yeah.
the value that you want into the world. And this is what we really, really, really hope for you. And the people who are coming forward, they're going to be sharing the things that they learned in their transition. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, Victoria, is that you kind of hinted at it earlier, and it's where you said that when you got a hold of Fascination Advantage as well as Wealth Dynamics, you were able to look in the past and kind of see everything differently because now you had a framework to look at all of that. And one of the things I know is that you started off in industrial engineering, actually, right?
College, yeah.
And then you went to industrial management. Knowing what you know now, okay, given the framework that you have now to talk through, how did that make sense?
Oh
How
my
do
gosh.
you see this validated through your life experience?
I mean, it was pretty freaky actually because I come from a family. My two older brother, no, well, I come from a it's not a technical family, and I had brothers that were in engineering. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go into engineering too. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, what a lot of people do is they pick something, and in my family is we pick what my older brother picked, and he was an engineer. He's still an engineer, and he is an engineer. He had been an engineer all of his life. That's
Mm-hmm.
it just permeates from him.
Mm-hmm.
And then my next older brother, he's totally not engineering, but he's an engineer even to this day because he chose engineering because my older brother chose engineering.
Yeah.
But he has a different profile, but it's working for him. But he can sell. That guy can
Mm-hmm.
sell. I don't know where he got it, but he was always in sales, and
Mm-hmm.
people love him. And then my younger brother, who's a few years older than me, he's also in information technology. So they're very technical, and I had all of them do the fascination assessment and totally came out spot on. But as far as me, I was always kind of the different one. I'm
Mm-hmm.
the only one that really had that entrepreneurial spirit. My sister thinks it's just way too much. She's a nurse and she's cool with that. That's just way too much stuff you got going on. Just get a job and just go
Stick
home,
with
go
it.
stick with it. But she said, I just think you guys just, whew. So anyway, so when I went to college, I jumped on that and I'm like, okay, engineering sounds good. I'll be an engineer. And I got there and I looked at the descriptions and I thought, well, industrial engineering sounded a lot more less technical than the other ones. Not that it was, it had something that I can wrap my head around. So it was all about process improvement. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of who I am too, about elevating standard, process improvement. I said, hey, we'll do that. So I went there and I had the aptitude for it, but I was bored to death. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just thinking, I'm just not going to do this for the rest of my life because it was just too technical. It wasn't people oriented enough. So
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking I need to change my major. So I did, and I saw there's industrial management, almost the same major, but it focused on leading people and getting things done. So I was around people. And from then on, everything became so much easier. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't struggle because even though I could do the engineering work, it was hard for me. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something that I had to work at it. And I just felt like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be in college, but this is hard work for me. I can do it, but I don't want to do this. So I went, and everything there, all of the classes were
Mm-hmm.
just easy breezy. I mean, I started making A's in everything. I barely had to study,
Mm-hmm.
and everything I was acing to the point where I got one professor who was like, well, I reserve the A's for myself and God. So I was like, well, if that's how you're going to do it, then I'm not going to, because that was when I was trying to take the exam. And he said, wait, why are you even taking the exam? You have a high B. And I was like, well, I can get an A and
Mm-hmm.
then I'll have a 4.0. And he was just like, well, let me save you the trouble. I reserve the A's for myself and God. And I was like, well, if you're going to be like that, then I won't
Okay.
come to the exam, waste my time. So he didn't. He
Mm-hmm.
made it clear that he was going to make it nearly impossible to get an A in his class. Not, and I said, whatever. And so I went and I excelled there. And when I got my job, I was able to. I was working in a plant in Toccoa, Georgia, which was another um, experience altogether. But that's when I really firsthand. I was a management intern. They'd never had a management intern. All of their interns had been engineering interns. And
Mm-hmm.
so I walk into this plant and they already have preconceived ideas about college students.
Yeah.
So they got this. And here I am. Nobody liked the manager at the time. So I walk in with several strikes against me. First of all, I'm a management intern. Engineering they could deal with because engineers weren't telling them what to do. Management they didn't like.
Yeah.
So I walk in and they made it clear that they didn't like the manager, but I liked the manager just fine. He was just a manager who was very keen on getting things done, and he was really to the point because his job was to make sure everybody on that floor had a job.
Yeah.
And I understood that, but I kind of understood them. He wasn't the most people person, but he cared about what was going on, but that didn't translate to them. And so I basically was that buffer, and I would go out and I would work with them, but it was really a challenge to get them to do things because if they don't like you, they're not going to do it.
Right.
That's just how it works. They will give you trouble and they won't do what you need them to do because they don't understand the importance of what you're doing. Because for me, they didn't understand that the work that I was doing was for them. It was making sure that we had the volume to have, what I was in charge of. And I needed them to do that. So I had to really get them to perform. And I didn't have a problem with it. It was just that it was a struggle that I had always just been responsible for myself. So if I don't do something, I can control myself. But you can't necessarily control people. People have to respond to you. And they have to like you and trust you and want to do stuff. Or they will screw it up just because they know it's going to screw you up.
Right.
And that was... every day I was like, oh my gosh, this is... And then a lot of them had very juvenile behavior. You would literally think you were on a playground with 6-year-olds. And you have to dig through all of that to get things done. And I was able to execute everything. I was fine with the management. I was fine with the employees. And I kind of learned, but it still didn't click to me that it was a gift. It didn't click to me. I was just with them and I talked to them and I engaged with them and I didn't have any issues with them, but it was still a barrier I had to cross in getting and executing. So, but I learned when I got back to this wealth dynamics why I made that switch from engineering. And I had always said it was too technical for me. It wasn't people oriented enough. It was too technical, wasn't people oriented enough. And that's why I switched. And that was one of the best decisions I made because everything turned around at that point.
Right. There's something you were saying there that reminds me so much of what we have heard in our, in seeking marketing education and what by now many of those listening might have heard of already. And it is that know, like, trust factor. You were kind of talking about that, but in terms of managing this particular plant. And so, bringing that forward into, those who are listening to the call, those who want to be entrepreneurs, those who are, but they're launching something new perhaps, and they're coming to this know, like, trust factor. They're coming to this place of newness. They're just here at square one for different reasons. What is the advice that you would have for them in this starting out space?
Well, on the know, like, trust is all about authenticity.
Yeah.
It's all about authenticity, and that's what these profiles will help for you, even if you do the personality type things, because what traps up a lot of entrepreneurs is they're trying to mimic other entrepreneurs or other successful people, and they fail miserably because they are not who they are trying to be, and they don't see the value in themselves. And a part of that is because most of the successful entrepreneurs that we see and we idolize are because they're in that natural star profile, that they're just the life of the party and they're charismatic and everybody knows them and they're in the limelight. But there are plenty other successful entrepreneurs who operate completely differently, but you don't see them. They're not as flamboyant, so to speak.
Yes.
And they're just as successful, but they're just not in the limelight. And we tend to mimic or want to mimic people that we see in the limelight because that's our perception of success. And when we do it and it's not who we are, we're gonna have a hard time because even at your very best trying to mimic someone else, you're going to be mediocre. And
Mm-hmm.
and the same goes for them trying to be you. But at your best, being who you are, your authentic self, you're going to excel. You're going to be extraordinary just because you already have that factor in you. You just got to bring it out, which is why we're doing this whole series, because we know that everyone is extraordinary. You just need a little bit of help of bringing it out and presenting that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, what people really need is to know their extraordinary factor.
Yeah.
And, I want to, hone in on this term that you used about, authenticity and being your authentic self. And, these are terms that sound kind of, la 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 and, very coachy and all of that. I'm sure these are terms that you've heard. If you haven't heard it from Oprah, okay, you've heard, you've seen it in the self-help section of the bookstore or whatever, what have you. Here what we are getting to, and we've said it before and just bringing it forward, and it would come down to the two things: knowing the innate value that you have, that you just inherently bring it to the table. You probably don't see it. You may notice that people tend to come to you for certain things, that there's a pattern around why people come to you, but you still don't really see it enough so that you can consciously leverage that.
Yeah.
So, and which supports your differentiation in the market. And the other piece is the actual path that you should be on. And this gets to your business model. There's more than one business model. There's more than one way of generating wealth. And between the two, your differentiation and your actual model that you use, that you're applying your differentiation to, this is what's going to make you successful. But if you don't have those two things, you don't know your extraordinary factor, these two pieces together, then you will spend so much time chasing the next shiny red ball, you know what I'm saying, that you see, the latest, technique, the latest thing, the latest campaign you see from whoever, is, managed to catch your eye, and you not know enough about yourself to recognize that, what, I see what he's saying, and what, I can even take this little piece of it, but the rest of us, that isn't even my path.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's not even the person I should look at. What I like about the wealth dynamics, and I'd like to know, I'm just going to put this here and you tell me if it helped you as much as it helped me, is it tells you which billionaires out there that you should actually be looking at as your models, because they literally generated their wealth using your model, using your path.
Yeah.
And that made all the difference to me. And when I understood what is the very thing that they're doing to leverage the value that they bring to the table, it just made all the difference in the world to me. And not only did I understand myself better, I understood how I was actually kind of already going there, but just not conscious about it. How about you? How did knowing your profiles support you even?
Well, it supports me in knowing that, one, it's a path, it's a wealth path, and it supported me in, one, I know what opportunities to look into and what to say no to.
Mm-hmm.
And having those in my profile, it's funny because most of the people with my profile are pretty low key. They're the ones behind the scenes. They're the ones, like the one who, the team lead at Apple. Steve Jobs had the creative inspiration, but he didn't lead his teams. There was a person with my profile that actually made it all come together. Once he said what he wanted, and he said when he wanted it by, he took off. Because his presence being with, and we know it with you, and your presence actually takes away because you keep changing things. You keep changing. The idea is never perfect. You keep changing, and it will never get done. So you need a person like me that can actually execute. And the same thing from the one who is the leading at eBay. All of that they had people with ideas, and they got the right person to execute. But you really don't hear about either one of them, which for our profile is totally fine.
Yeah, yes. Being in the limelight
it's not really our thing.
Right. And so having said that, I really want, in front of everybody listening, I want to acknowledge you for doing this interview. People, when I told you earlier that it pulling teeth. You have to understand, I had to literally pitch this hard. I did. I had to pitch it. And, and then
And it's
he
not
kind of,
because I don't like to talk. I'm extroverted. I'm very
yes.
extroverted. And it's just that when it comes to attention being on me, I'm not really feeling it as much. But when it comes to everyone else, which is why I like the interview model, I was like, sweet, I can do this because I don't have to focus on me. And that's why I like the second event that we did, because everybody else, I got on there, I said what I had to say, and I got off.
Yeah, I like that one too. I mean, just even being there and being in support of you there. For those of you listening, we're talking about the second event that we did with Baraka Biz Network. And when we say event, we're not talking about online events. We're talking about live events here in Southern California, Orange County specifically. And in that one, the first one, the first time you do anything, you're putting it out there, you're learning, and so on and so forth. And you continue doing that, by the way. Victoria already talked about learning cycles. When we came to our next learning cycle with the event, it was fleshed out. It was organized a little differently. But what I loved about that is that Victoria opened up the space, warmed up the space like we're doing now. Okay, in like for the purpose of reluctantly, she didn't want to get up there, but like, look, come on, you need to get up there and say something. But once she did her thing, who did she hand off the MC duties to? Ali, handed that off to him and let him do his thing, because as a star profile, that's natural for him. Yeah. And he carried that. So you delegated that piece. Yeah. And, who kept things on schedule and in flow and all of that. That was delegated to, Hutan, your husband, Hutan. And as an accumulator, that is that's his profile. That is the perfect role for him. Everybody shined in their right place. But again, the right people to pull together in order to do it.
And I didn't know it at the time. It was just,
you didn't know that.
You're going to do this. You're going to do this.
Right.
I'm going to do this. You're going to do this. And it was just basically assigning based on what I knew and what I felt they were going to excel. And I didn't, even with that, I didn't have to tell him what to say. I already knew he would figure it out. I already knew, because it was just how he is. And he loves the limelight, and he's brilliant there. I didn't have to tell him what to say. Somebody else, if they were out of flow, I would have. But for him, I knew it. And it was funny one day when my husband was trying to tell him at another event, okay, so this is what we're going to do. And he was looking at him like, okay, I got it. I know what to do. Like, I do this for a living. I got this. And who's owning everything. I never even told him that. So I thought I was like, be cool. Trust me, he got it. If he didn't have it, I wouldn't have put him there to begin with. I knew who I picked when I picked him.
Yes.
So it was hilarious.
And knowing what we know about the profiles, the fact that that your husband would even make that comment, or he would kind of check in and try to direct, we know that that is just what the accumulator would do. It's not even personal anymore. No. When you know people's profiles, you don't take any of it personally anymore, because you understand it's about their energy. It's their natural flow, what they can't help themselves. They just can't help it. And so it takes out any of the personal, personal kind of responses or reactions to people away. You just understand people are doing what they innately do. And so Hutan, he was doing what he would innately do. When you were telling me that story, what I said to you? Well, you know what? He's an accumulator. What do we expect?
But we know that now.
Yes, we know that now.
We know that now.
We didn't know that then.
But it worked out brilliantly. And he even, because he's such a great organizer. And after the event, he told me, because I gave him, and I'm not as good as he is, but I can organize certain things and I can plan things. So I gave him a printout of everybody and what order they were going on, so he knew exactly when everybody was coming up. And he thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. And he was like, that was so good, because it kept him on schedule, and we knew who was going next, and we were able to feed the MC and everything. And if he had to fill in something, he did it brilliantly. We didn't have to tell him anything, and it just flowed, and everybody there was just happy.
Everybody there was happy. Everybody was, I would say, those of us who were putting it on or involved in putting it on, we were all in flow. He was doing his star thing. You were doing your supporter thing. Hutan, your husband, he was doing his accumulator thing. And I participated too. I stepped up and did my thing, my creator self, and there's a particular thing that we can do, and so everybody was in their right space and place. And one of the things, for those of you who are listening, we so hope to support you in stepping into your right place and space. I'm helping you to consciously now see it, not to just look up and truck up on it,
Yeah.
but to truly consciously see it and be able to then leverage it and use it not only for yourself as you engage your body of work and your effort, but also then to be able to come together with the right particular people in order to leverage or magnify whatever it is that you're doing, so you can even have greater impact and greater results with your body of work or with your service. So what is it that we really want them, well, not really want them to, well, we do want them to do it, but what I'm saying is, we want them to listen to this. They're listening now that we have, really help them to see why we're here, why this was created, why we're here, what we're so hoping for them, what are the next steps that we want them to take. What should they be doing next, Victoria?
Well, first of all, is basically subscribing to the podcast, listening to it, either visiting the site, o2epodcast.com, visiting the site, seeing who's up next. We'll have a variety of entrepreneurs from different backgrounds. Some will be Muslim, some will not be Muslim, some will be Christian. They're from all different backgrounds. And I bring up those because a lot of times our faith is a very big part of what we do. And they'll be from different backgrounds, and you'll learn
Yes.
from their mistakes. You'll learn what they learned. And sometimes you're going to hear some of the things over and over, but we wanted to give you that platform. One, that's the first thing. Then go and take those assessments. They're on our site, on the resources page, o2epodcast.com, on the resources page. Both of those assessments we talked about are there. Take them, subscribe to our list, and just stay there. We're going to be launching in a few months. We're going to be launching, inshallah, God willing, we're going to be launching a group training project. And staying true to who I am, I pulled, even before I learned this, months ago, I pulled together a team of entrepreneurs who are extraordinary. They're great marketers. They're great internet marketers, online marketers. They're very good in their own businesses. They're very successful. And I pulled the team together like I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look, I want to launch this group training product. And I didn't want it to come from one person. I wanted it to come from different perspectives. So you can get not only a different profile, but you can also, and I was doing it unconsciously at the time, but I wanted people to be able to respond to different trainers, because what I learned is when you respond to one and you do one, it's all great, it's all gravy, if you know how to dissect what to take out and what to put in, and
Yeah.
realize how you can, tweak and change this training to better suit you. But I brought in, right now we're at about 9, and I expect that to grow as I bring in more people to take different aspects or different parts of the training. And you get to learn from different experts, and you'll see in their training how they operate differently, and some of you might resonate with more than others, but all of them are successful. They're all doing it online every single day, and they're great trainers. And again, that took the pressure off of me of having to produce or create a whole product that I don't create.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'll get a product done, and I'll get it done with the best people to get it done for you. And that's what we're launching, God willing, in a couple months.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
you're on our mailing list, which is on our website, on the green button that says, yes, I want to be an entrepreneur, you will get those updates. And we'll also be talking about it in our podcast as well.
Yes. And speaking of the podcast, something that we've said throughout our time together today is, or there's been mention of, this extraordinary factor, right?
Mhm.
That's, this is what you are already extraordinary, but we
Yeah.
want to bring that out. We want
Yeah.
you to know what that factor is so that you can, in fact, use this consciously. And this is going to support you in your entrepreneurial journey. So having said that, we have, you mentioned Muslim and non-Muslim, but I also know, simply because I know, that we do intend to have people who aren't necessarily entrepreneurs at all, right?
Mhm.
But what? They also have that extraordinary
Extraordinary factor.
factor, right?
Yeah.
So can you speak more about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, because not everyone I'm going to bring on, and I'm excited about some of the people that are coming on and who've already agreed because I told them that they were going to do it. Um, but they're excited about it. But they have so much to bring to the table because they might not be entrepreneurs themselves. Some of them, most of them will be, but they have something. They're able. They have an extraordinary factor about them. They're able to move people. They're just who they are, and they have something that you can take away from it just from being who they are, and you can apply it to business if you want, or it can be applied to work. It doesn't necessarily have to be entrepreneurship. That's our focus because that's our passion, that's who we are. But the
Yes.
same principles can be applied to family life. It
Yes.
helped all of us when it comes to understanding our spouses. I don't have children, but you do.
Yeah.
Spouses, your children, coworkers, you're going for a job, anything, it helps you leverage and tap into that and present your case. So we're really just trying to help you bring out what's already there. Because I took years. It took me
Yes.
years and years and years to find this. And when I found it, I said, now we have to save everybody else all of the
Yes.
frustration. Because
Yes.
years ago, probably 2002, 2003, I went to this class called What Were You Born to Do?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't leave knowing what I was born to do. And I was a
Yeah.
little bit annoyed because so many of us are trying to find what were you born to do? And we want to do something, we want to contribute, but there was nothing out there at that time, and neither one of these were even available to even help us tap into it. So what we came out of that with, I came out of it that I was born to start a business or to run a business or being, and I'm like, well, I didn't need to come here for you to tell me that. I knew that coming in. I'm trying to
Right.
figure out what business to start and how to start it.
Yes.
And I just kind of just went with my whim, and I started my business, did very well in my businesses. It's just that now these tools have just opened up even more. So if I had them then, it would have helped save me a lot. But I'm definitely grateful for the journey. You have to
Yes.
remember not to discount the journey. That's the fun
Yes.
part. It's
Yes.
that's the
Yes.
part of knowing where you can look back and see where you've come from. You don't discount that. You're gonna make mistakes. You need to make mistakes. Mistakes are what get you going. And I was interviewing someone yesterday, and they said you have to manage your disappointment or something like that. And it was something just, and when you manage disappointment, you realize that it's going to happen, but you don't let it make you quit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because a lot of people quit before they really get going just because they were doing the wrong things to begin with.
Right.
So we want to get you started off on the right track as much as possible, and just to be here to support you throughout this process.
Exactly. Exactly. So well said. And I think that we have, let's see, so they know the range of people that we are going to have. All of them have the extraordinary factor, and they'll be sharing how they went from ordinary, how that plays out for them, to extraordinary, where they are now. That whole learning cycle, if you will, or cycles, we'll learn about for each, right? And then we
Yeah.
have now the shows themselves, they'll be about what, 30 to 35 minutes in length, or
They've been
what?
about 35 to 45 minutes. I know we've been talking a little bit longer than that, but
Yeah.
you don't probably won't hear from me that much anymore. So, uh, but yeah, they're ranging from about 35 to 45 minutes, and
Okay.
that's pretty much how it's been going. But they all have great input. I'm learning a lot from them, and I'm taking my notes as I'm interviewing them. So,
Right, right. Okay,
so
so pulling it together for those who are listening, first of all, you're going to want to subscribe to the podcast. And when you do subscribe to the podcast, isn't there a discount on one of the assessments that they get or something like that? Just
when
something
they subscribe to the mailing list,
to the mailing.
the
Okay.
emails, it's the green button on our website. When they subscribe on the mailing list, there is a discount for one of the assessments.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that is definitely key for you. I think everybody is willing to sign on for that kind of opportunity. So there you have that. And then with that discount, definitely take the assessment, the Wealth Dynamics assessment, and the Fascination Advantage assessment, because in
Yeah.
between the two, you're going to learn how other people see your innate value, not
Yeah.
your personality and what you like and what you don't like. No, it's what other people are picking up from you and why they would even want you at the table. And then you'll also get another way to look at your value, how you fit in the value creation chain in the market, and how
Yes.
you can take that and leverage it. So we want you guys to do that. Shorten your learning curve. These two things, who you are, that's how it translates in business. What are you bringing to the table, and how do you leverage it?
Yes.
That's
And
it.
that's what
Doesn't it?
people are going to pay
Yeah.
you for. People are
Yes.
going to pay you for these two things, and you might as well know it up front, because when you
Yes.
start making money, you can just keep doing it, and
Yes.
and do it on purpose. Again, the mistakes will be there, the learning cycles will be there, but now you'll just be in flow all the time. And when
Yeah.
and even if you fall out, you know why. If something
Yes.
goes wrong, you'll know why it went wrong. Maybe because you stepped into a different profile, you tried to do something else, or because we have to keep constantly coming back and reminding ourselves, why did we start this? What was our purpose? What was our mission? And then
Hmm.
that's another thing you have to do constantly, because you're going to get people to throw those ideas out you so fast, and you're going to be like, oh, that sounds great, and you might buy into it. But if you buy into it and you end up stepping into a different role, kaplut.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
mean, it happened with major organizations, even with leaders at Disney and
Hmm.
things like that. So don't discount the fact that it happens in the with the major corporations as well, when they change leadership and they get the wrong person in the wrong roles, and they get out of their flow. A lot of times it has really detrimental effects on the entire company. So
Yes.
that's extremely, extremely important, and to look at these stories and to at least know you have a good foundation and a good footing starting with. I don't know anyone else really that's really have pulled together these type of resources, because we've done so much in so many different places, so
Yeah.
many trainings, we've spent the money, we've trained with so many
Yes.
trainers, and they're great. The ones that we train with are great, excellent, brilliant marketers. We're not saying anything, because we learned from them, and we're taking what we've learned and bringing it to you from different places, because they're not connected all in one place. That's the
Yes.
thing. They're not in one place, and that's what we do very well, is we find the best and we bring it in. And
Yes.
it in
Exactly. And that's what you do so well.
yes.
So, yes, yes. So, it's my hope for those of you who are listening that by now you know exactly who the founder of BBN, Baraka Biz Network, is, the whole mission, the whole reason for being of this podcast, and what we are here to support you in doing and why. And so we truly hope that you step forward and allow yourself to be supported, that you go ahead and sign up, put your name and address in there, click that green button, give yourself that discount, allow yourself the access to that, and do the, and regardless, okay, do the assessments and put yourself in the position so that you have a shorter learning curve, if you will, or ramp up curve, in this first learning cycle that you're going through,
Yes.
either in your first, foray into entrepreneurship, or just your new round of activity with this new project that you have going on. So that is what we truly encourage for you. And Victoria, are there any last words that you have for our listeners today?
I just want to say thank you for sticking in there with us. I know we have talked quite a bit, and it's all because we really want you to excel, and we already know that you have it in you. And and just to get going, even after you take those assessments and do these things, you're going to be energized. You're going to be in a state where you feel like, I can do this, and that's where you need to be, because you're going to need that energy to carry you throughout this process anyway. And
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
continue to learn, continue to engage, and to give back. We'll have a Facebook group starting. Again, that information will be on the site, so we can connect, and we can ask questions and give feedback and really, really get to supporting each other. This is not a Lone Ranger project. We already know that Lone Ranger is not the best fit, and we don't want to make it a Lone Ranger project for anyone. We want to get everyone up and going to where they are living their life the way they want to, and even their friends and family as well. So
Yeah, okay.
thank you.
All right. Beautiful. So, Victoria, thank you. Well, let me thank you in front of everyone for stepping forward and doing this. Like I acknowledged you before, I acknowledge you again for leaning into just for all of this. You heard a call. You heard a message in your heart, and you followed that, and that led to the creation of Baraka Biz Network. And paying attention to what people were saying, what people were needing, willing to be of service to the people instead of just coming up with some idea and just kind of trying to gather people around your idea. No, everything that you've done has been in response to what people have been saying to you is needed. And so this podcast comes in response to that call as well. So for those of you listening, we hope that that what you receive here is of support to you, that you step forward even more closely now around the fire, if you will. Allow yourself to receive warmth and guidance and light, and even protection to keep you from going off on paths that don't belong to you, trying to live out values that are not innate to you, inherent within you, and to do that, and so that you can move much more effortlessly through this entrepreneurial journey. And so with that, again, thank you, Victoria. Thank you to all of you who are
Thank
listening
you.
and for sticking with us.
Yeah.
So, and with that, I would simply say assalamu alaikum,
Oh, peace
peace
be
to
with you.
everyone, and we hope to be speaking with y'all soon.
Okay. Bye now. Thanks.
Bye bye.